Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something we all use constantly, every single day, but maybe don't fully grasp: money. Our mission here is to look past the coins and notes, the numbers on a screen, and explore what money really is. We'll look at how our financial system works, or maybe how it doesn't, bust some myths, and see what our sources think might be coming next for the economy.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area because money, as our sources point out, it has this weird duality. They call it both very ephemeral and very solid.
Ephemeral and solid, how can it be both?
Well, figuring that out is key, right, to understanding what it actually does, the problems it faces now, and how it affects all of us. We're really looking under the hood of how we trade and transact.
Okay, let's start simple then. Imagine just two people, A and B. They want to trade. Say, B's got a boat, A runs an apple farm. Simple swap, right? Barter. Needs met.
Straightforward.
But what if A doesn't need the boat right now? Maybe in a year. That simple barter doesn't work across time.
Exactly. And that's where money comes in. The sources frame it as, well, a technology. Its main job is to let that simple trade, that barter, be carried forward in time.
A technology to move trade through time. Interesting.
Yeah, and when you see it like that, what counts as money gets really broad. It could be anything. Dollars, sure. Euros, wands, those old yapstones, even just digits on your bank app.
As long as it does that job.
As long as it allows the contents of a barter through
Right.
time. So yeah, it's a convenience, definitely an easy technology. But the crucial part, the sources stress, is it being a time technology. You get it now, hold on to that need or want, and use it later.
Money is a time machine for transactions. I like that. It makes me think of that old phrase from maybe the 50s or 60s, putting your money to work.
Yeah.
How does just having money make it magnify itself?
Right, putting money to work. Fundamentally, it just means lending it out, loaning it to someone else. The person borrowing it, they pay more back, right? For the privilege of getting that money now. It essentially lets them shorten the time involved in getting what they want or need.
Ah, so they pay extra for speed, basically.
Precisely. And that's the whole concept of debt, right there, at its root. The lender gets a bit more back, and the borrower gets what they wanted sooner. They gain time. Now, obviously, debt today is way more complex, layers upon layers, all the jargon.
Yeah, definitely.
But the core idea is still simple. My wants and needs, time, and the ability to move it forward or put it closer to me.
That makes sense. It simplifies the core of debt. And, well, this leads into something critical our sources raise.
Right.
This idea that people aren't really taught about money. They specifically point to the removal of economics and personal finance from schools in the U.S. They argue it's almost deliberate.
Yes. They argue it leaves people easily duped, as they put it. And this brings us right to what the sources very bluntly call the shit that is central banking, focusing on Western private central banks.
Strong words.
Very. They present a really critical view. For example, they state that the Federal Reserve is owned by private individuals, not by the government, not by the people.
Yeah.
Now, that's their interpretation, but it's central to their whole argument about how the system is flawed. They see it as an instrument, a vehicle for creating debt that is put on all of the people using that currency.
Wow. Okay, so they see the Fed as a private entity creating debt for the public, and they suggest this isn't new for the U.S., right? That there's a history here.
According to them, yes. They point out the U.S. had three previous attempts at central banking before the current Fed. And they claim all of them failed, ultimately beggared the country because they polluted the money with debt.
So a recurring cycle of failure, in their view.
That's their narrative. And while the current Federal Reserve has lasted, over a century, they point to the dollar's purchasing power. They measure it as having less than a single cent of the value it had back in 1913.
Less than 1 cent compared to 1913. That's an incredible decline.
It is. And for the sources, this history, plus the loss of value, makes them see the central bank as, well, essentially a scam. Even though it's legally established, they argue it has ingratiated themselves with our government.
A legal scam, essentially.
That's the framing.
Yeah.
And the core issue they identify is this. The minute you work and they give you $1, you're in debt. Any money from the Fed, they argue, inherently has something that is attached to it, which is a debt, and you owe interest. So they see the whole system as scamming their way by printing so many of these things. It's a very critical perspective on money creation.
Okay, so if the system is built on debt, as they claim, and people aren't educated about it, it makes sense they'd be vulnerable to what the sources call falsehoods and a polluted blogosphere. What kind of things are we talking about?
Well, a big one they mention is GIS-RNSA. You hear these acronyms thrown around a lot online.
Right. What are they supposed to be?
They're presented as these, like, global or national plans to basically give everybody everything that they ever wanted in the way of money. Like, all your wants and needs, instantly fulfilled, money problems gone.
Sounds too good to be true.
And the sources say it is. They call them falsehoods, a con. Their main purpose, according to the sources, is just to keep people's minds busy, distracted. They ask a basic question: has money ever been free?
And the answer is?
It's never, ever been free.
Yeah.
There's always, in our current system as they describe it, debt and interest attached to it.
Okay, so GIS-RNSA is one example. What else?
Another one is the Iraqi dinar scam. Similar idea, keeps people mentally occupied, hoping for a windfall.
Right, the idea that the dinar will suddenly revalue and make people rich.
Yeah, but the sources pour cold water on that. They ask, look, if the Iraqi government did buy back dinars, they'd likely pay in U.S. dollars, right?
Yeah.
But if the U.S. dollar itself is losing value, becoming more worthless dollars, are you actually gaining anything significant?
Good point. You're just trading one potentially devaluing currency for another.
Exactly. They contrast this with what happened with the Kuwaiti dinar. That did revalue successfully, but why? Because Kuwait physically got back its assets, its oil wells, after Saddam Hussein was ousted. That restored real value and confidence. It wasn't just hope.
So tangible assets backing the currency, not just speculation.
That's the key difference they highlight. Then there's the St. Germain Trust.
Ah, yes, the mythical trust fund from centuries ago.
That's the one. Supposedly funding the U.S. with incredible wealth, based on interest run since the 1700s. The sources point out the obvious flaws. First, what banks have even existed continuously since the 1700s holding that kind of money?
Good question. Probably none.
And second, basic logic. If one trust had that much accumulated wealth, it would have all of the money in the world and no one would have any money whatsoever. It breaks the whole system.
It violates basic economic principles, which brings us back to something you mentioned earlier, scarcity.
Exactly. But before scarcity, one more. The quantum financial system. The QFS.
Oh, right, QFS. People like Charlie Ward, Simon Parks talk about it.
They do. And the sources find a real disconnect there. They say the people promoting QFS are often the same ones who seem freaked out about AI.
Okay.
Yet the QFS itself is described as being 100% AI. So there's a contradiction. Plus, the practicalities seem, well, questionable. One estimate mentioned needing 4.5 trillion people to digitize everything for it.
4.5 trillion? That's more people than have ever existed.
Right. And where's the computer system capable of handling that anyway? It doesn't seem feasible based on what we know now.
Definitely raises some big questions about practicality.
And all these fantasies, GIS, dinar, Saint Germain, QFS, they ignore that fundamental thing we keep coming back to, scarcity.
Explain that link. Why is scarcity so important?
Because, as the sources state very clearly, it is scarcity that allows something to be a species to travel through time. Sorry, I mean allows value to travel through time.
Allows value to travel through time. Okay.
Think about it. If gold literally paved the streets, all of the streets are paved with gold, then gold is just a rock. It's common. It's not money anymore because it's not scarce.
Got it. Abundance removes its special value.
Precisely. And dollars, under the current system, where they can be created relatively easily, well, they're very scarce, are they? That's why they're not doing very well traveling through time, meaning their purchasing power goes down.
Like that 1913 dollar now being worth less than a cent.
Exactly. Compare that to something like silver. It is scarce. Historically, it holds value better. Though the sources argue its price is often suppressed by central banks who don't want scarce assets competing with their fiat currency. Ultimately, scarcity is what drives humans. It drives our wants, our needs, the entire system. Without it, value just dissolves.
Okay, so understanding scarcity, understanding these critiques, it sets the stage for what the sources were predicting back in 2022. They foresaw major disruptions, right?
They did. They expected 2022 to bring serious banking issues and economic chaos. That was their projection at the time.
What did they think that chaos would look like?
They described a process. Major economic hits, crashes, banks starting to sort of fade.
Yeah.
They mentioned a 74% inflation figure back then, which is huge, and worried it could tip into hyperinflation, like 10% a day or something extreme.
Wow.
And they actually pinpointed a time frame. They said the initial stage of the actual collapse of the banking structures might happen around March or April 2022, banks failing.
That's a very specific and alarming prediction for that time. Did they offer any sign? Like, how would the average person know this shift was actually happening?
Yeah, they gave one key indicator. They said, watch the cost of buying real money from out of fake money,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you'll need a lot more fake money, like dollars, to buy real assets, maybe like gold or silver. And that cost would just keep escalating really rapidly.
So a rapid spike in the price of tangible assets versus the currency, that's the signal.
That was the signal they pointed to. And they predicted this would cause immense chaos, particularly for people who are uneducated about how money actually works, leading, potentially, to many tiers in the social order, serious social unrest.
That sounds pretty bleak. Is there any way to navigate that kind of chaos?
Well, this is where individual understanding comes in. The sources stress that the chaos can be moderated in ourselves by understanding individually how money works. Education is the defense. It helps you make wiser decisions, helps you avoid falling for the scams, especially in a time of very great stress.
So knowledge is power,
There
essentially.
really is. And they're quite blunt.
Yeah.
Anyone pushing Gisara, Nasara, Saint Germain, or QFS, from their perspective, those people are not educated in money.
Okay, so avoid the miracle cures, focus on understanding the fundamentals. But amidst all this potential doom and gloom, the sources did mention some good news, didn't they? Something about new systems emerging.
Yes, they did point towards hope. They mentioned nascent systems, new things starting up, and a self-organizing collective. People already working on solutions, thinking about real money.
What might that look like? What kind of solutions?
Well, getting rid of the central banking system, as they advocate for, would fundamentally change things.
Yeah.
Suddenly your assets, say my silver, would have no debt attached and no interest attached automatically. It just is valuable because it's scarce.
A debt-free asset.
Exactly. And they also touch on technology, specifically distributed ledger blockchain technology.
Like the tech behind Bitcoin and other cryptos.
Sort of, yeah. That kind of secure, transparent, decentralized record keeping. They see it as a potential tool to help create a new money system relatively quickly,
Yeah.
if there's the social will and the political will to do it.
So the technology might be there, but the human element is key.
Absolutely. And they reiterate, a truly healthy and robust economy doesn't need things like Jasara or Nesara. In fact, they argue those ideas actually pollute a healthy economy. It's kind of like winning a massive lottery jackpot seems great, but often leads to a very miserable outcome for the winner because they weren't prepared for it.
Interesting analogy. Sudden, unearned wealth can be destructive.
That's the idea they're conveying.
Wow. Okay, this has been quite the deep dive. We've gone from money as a simple time tool to complex debt systems, alleged scams, and potential future collapses and renewals. It's definitely more than just cash in your pocket.
Yeah, I think the core message from these sources is pretty stark. The current money system, in their view, is deeply flawed. They use stronger language, fucked and going away. That's their assessment. And so understanding what money really is, understanding scarcity, that's crucial for anyone trying to figure out what's coming next.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If money really is like a gas, as one source put it, powerful but ephemeral, and maybe we focus too much on that malleable part, easily created part, and neglected the solid part, the part based on real value and scarcity. What does that mean for us? For how we value our work, our savings, our future, as we potentially head towards a very different economic landscape. Something to think about.